Welcome back, everyone, to Who Cares podcast. Today, we've got a fantastic guest from Beanbag Care, Claire. Now, I've known Claire quite a long time, and we've been batting and balling around telecare and technology for a long time. So we thought we'd get in a room together and really dig into lots of bit around digital and around care, and things that are real pros but real cons sometimes too.
Absolutely.
And today we really wanted to dig into around digital inclusion, and have a real focus on that. So before I start, we've got Vic here. So Vic works for Unicare Devon, and she leads a lot of our supported living units that telecare can really help with, can't it?
Absolutely.
So but before we get all into that, do you want to introduce yourself, Claire?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Claire Barber. I work at Secure Meters for a product called Beanbag Care, but I'm an occupational therapist by background, and I've spent many, many years managing care homes and dom care agencies as well. So a real good experience and insight into how technology could really bring things forward and the issues that kind of present themselves today. So.
And what's nice, every time I speak to you, you're so passionate about it. I mean, you're not just passionate because it's a business, you're passionate because it can really change lives, aren't you?
Absolutely.
And Vic, before we get started, introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Vic, and as John said, I work for Unicare. I look after some of the supported living homes and manage them. And Claire's been round with some colleagues to look at the homes to see if there's something that we can be able to put into the homes and see if it's going to work.
I think that's really part of this, isn't it? No system is fit for everybody, so you really have to plan these things in, don't you?
Absolutely.
And sometimes, going back to digital inclusion, you just simply can't because of the restrictions. Do you want to run through what you mean by digital inclusion and why we really need to dig into it?
Absolutely. I think from nowadays perspective, most things are online, so we live our lives online, but there is a massive population of people out there that don't have access to that, and that could be for a number of reasons, not just because they don't have broadband, they don't have devices to be able to access the internet, but also because they are worried about internet, they're worried about digital solutions, how they work, whether they're reliable, whether people are going to scam them through it, and also their knowledge and have how to use it. And I think especially when you come to populations that potentially have cares, like the people living with disabilities, the older population, generally they're the most likely to be having issues around digital inclusion. So,
and it's really tricky. I mean, in Devon especially, you know, we have lots of rural areas.
Absolutely.
And the infrastructure sometimes just isn't there. I mean, we've seen a real big boom, haven't we, in how technology works from the old 2G to the 5G we got now, and the infrastructure is coming up, but there are still pockets where our care teams, and Vic, you've had this a lot of times, haven't you, where we go to log in and out of our own software and we simply can't, and we have to have it all kept on the device until we can hit a signal. But that's because we've put that in place. And like you say, there's lots of people have real big reservations about it. But it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because there's a cohort of people, like my dad, he was very much into tech. I mean, he would always have the best phone, and even phones better than I've had. And he's like, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Online banking, all these sort of things. But we're also seeing the criminals really scaling how they defraud people. And that really is a worry for people, isn't it?
Yeah.
If I get this tech and I embrace this new technology, will I then become scammed so I don't have enough knowledge?
And they're so clever nowadays. You know, people are sending WhatsApp messages that look like they're from your daughter saying, can you wire me some money? I'm desperate. And my mum will quite happily fall for a lot of this stuff because it looks real and it comes from a supposedly trusted source, and actually it's not. So there's absolutely a risk there for people, especially those who don't understand technology and how it works.
Yeah, I mean, from your point, Vic, when you think about some of the people we look after, I mean, you've come across all sorts of people, from people that are really tech savvy to people that are really worried. What are the key things that you would think about when you think about some of the people who may not be looking to adopt it?
Yeah, so I think there's plenty of people that don't want to adopt it, and for all the reasons that you've said, they're just scared of getting scammed because there's so much about, because everything does look real now, and it's just a learning curve for them all. We have an issue at the moment is a lot of our guys in the supported living, they use cash. We take it out of the cash machine, they use cash, we can't use the cards because they don't know the pins and we can't have the pins. And then we get on things like trains, and it's card only.
Yeah.
You can't get through a lot of the train stations without tapping your card, but they've taken cash, and it's a real difficult situation. A lot of the shops are not accepting cash anymore, and that's how we've always done things.
And it's the most bizarre thing when you talk about cash. It's the biggest legal tender.
Yeah.
You're almost obliged to accept it, but like you're saying, some people don't.
Yeah.
I mean, the nice thing about that, they're not insurmountable issues. There are products out there that are digital that can be used to resolve some of these things. But again, it's about how we adopt those, and as a community, how we have a community approach to help people adopt them, but also help protect them, isn't it? Through infrastructures and through education, and through conversations like this where we can highlight some of the risks and some of the things that you can do proactively.
I think there's such vast things of technology out there now. There's so many options for a solution that you're looking for. So, I mean, just look at mobile phones. It used to be that sort of Nokia were the mobile phone of choice, but now I know, me too. Snake, you remember Snake?
The best game ever.
Absolutely. But now there's a massive amount, and I guess you guys, from a care provider perspective, I mean, even if you're looking at things like digital care planning, there are countless organisations, and how do you know how to navigate all that and which to choose?
It's endless, isn't it? It's endless.
Absolutely.
But one of the big things that I would always advise anybody to do is, I mean, it's very hard if you have no family, isn't it? But if you have family, sit down with them and really detail what are you trying to fix through technology, because so often we buy technology before we even know what we need it for, don't we? And I think let's not do that. Let's sit down and say, what am I trying to fix by getting technology? And if it's banking, what do I need for that? And be really specific about what you need it for, and find that information out and have the training for that and the education around it. And, and certain banks like Barclays, for instance, they do online training, don't they? They do training around being safe online. So you can reach out to anchor organisations like that, can't you, and get that sort of stuff.
There's also charities, local governments are doing sort of tech programmes where they will do sessions, and local libraries, community centres where they'll be able to support people, and even commercial organisations like Secure Meters will go out and do opportunities for people to come and learn. And I guess from your guys' perspective as well, you've got carers visiting people that may well be also more tech savvy and be able to support.
We do have some carers that go through like digital footprints and the impact, and teach them how to use the iPads and smart TVs and things like that.
And I think it's all wonderful stuff, isn't it? But sometimes you'll get the buy-in, haven't you? I mean, so often I've met people who are just very, I'm not going to do it.
Yes,
it's as simple as that. However, if you can get them to embrace it, it's like a whole world's been opened up to it, isn't it?
I think it's quite interesting that, I mean, my dad's in that category. He will not use technology, and it's mainly down to he doesn't have the patience or the headspace to take it on and learn it. But actually, that's the difficulty he has. How do we overcome that? So he wants to be able to embrace technology and still achieve the things that my mum, for example, will achieve. But what we did was go, okay, what is it you, as you said, want to achieve, and how do we get to that point? And then we bought something very basic for him to use, made it very simple.
Yeah. What did you buy? I'm intrigued.
So he has a smartphone that just literally has the things on it that he wants. So
so that makes sense, doesn't it?
Very simple. And that way we didn't have to go through lots and lots of training with him. It's one screen, you tap on it, job
I want
done.
to speak to you here, I want to go to the bank there.
Absolutely.
That's it. I mean, and that's something to really consider, isn't it? It doesn't matter even if it's a specific phone or a phone like a Galaxy I have, you can lock down just the apps you want to use if you can find someone to show you how to do it. So it's something like you've just highlighted, it's really thinking through the process. How do we bring you into the new world in a safe way that you feel comfortable with?
Absolutely.
But that doesn't really fix some of the problems that we see in rural communities where you have no internet and you have no broadband, and also we have poverty. People can't afford these things sometimes. I mean, how do we get around this? I mean, society as a whole is shifting to this real, you must be digital. And as you've highlighted by this whole conversation, is there are people that are being really left behind. And those people can't even sometimes tell us. They can't go online and say, I'm going to fill out a form because I'm left behind, because they have nothing. So I mean, what can communities do to highlight those people? I mean, if you go back to the 1950s, you would look after your neighbour, and we don't do that so much anymore. But somebody somewhere must know that you're struggling with your internet, or you're struggling.
Yeah.
How do we do this and navigate this, do you think?
I think, do you know, there was some fantastic projects that came up in the COVID period. So I know down in Kent, for example, they funded a significant amount of tablets, and they reached out to people in the community that they knew from GP records, from referrals into social care that have maybe been in hospital, and said, you know, we'll come out, we'll set it up for you, we'll train you how to use it, you have free access to it. And that's the way they supported those people. So they've been a lot of kind of funded projects in COVID. Unfortunately, now we're back to the norm, I suppose.
Pay for it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of those projects have kind of reduced. But I always think, you know, I've probably got 2 or 3 devices sat in a drawer in my house that I no longer use. It's old, and I keep thinking I'll take it to cash converters or whatever.
Yeah.
But actually, if I could then donate that or provide it to somebody that needs it, that would be a better option.
That's a really nice opportunity for a village or something to have a real initiative, isn't it? To say, look, we've all got these gadgets, but little Joan down the road has nothing. Can we support with that? And I think there's something also around, isn't there? You know, making sure you're well connected with your MPs.
Yes.
You know, if the infrastructure's not there, you're going to have to rally the troops to make sure you get the infrastructure in place.
I also think when it comes to broadband, I was in a very lucky situation when I first moved down here. As you know, it takes days, sometimes weeks to set up broadband. And I work from home, so I need to have access immediately. And I was lucky that my neighbours upstairs had a very good, strong broadband connection. So I just knocked on their door and said, do you mind if I hop on? Just use it until my broadband sets up. And they were very gracious and let me do it. And I think that there's this opportunity there as well to sort of share resource. And even if you do have some people that are living in poverty, then, you know, if you have a good neighbour, if you share something like that, that might be an option to be able to...
Absolutely. And I think that's definitely a consideration, isn't it? You know, I mean, you want to be able to put some caveats around that and make sure that the person that you're sharing with has the right scruples, because lots of things can be accessed on the internet. But if you've got an elderly person or someone who's vulnerable, and it's for a short amount of time, you know, it's a consideration, isn't it? I mean, it doesn't cost you any more.
No, absolutely.
That's a really nice thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
So some of these projects, I mean, do we know of any projects that are like this that are being run out in any villages where people are sharing old tech and stuff?
Yeah, I haven't come across any. I haven't seen any, but I do know that people at Age UK, often they'll set up little projects like this. So it's probably worth looking into local kind of charities that support these types of endeavours.
And usually in sort of the smaller villages, there's always a cohort of people who run the village, isn't there? You know, so I live in Kings Kerr as well, and we've got a team of people that are very Kings Kerrswelly, that I'm sure that we could talk to. And it's just finding a bit of energy, isn't it? And realising if you can put a bit of energy in at the front, your community will be better off.
Absolutely.
So this is obviously a quick intro into this. From yourselves as Beanbag Care, which is what I'm going to go for, because that's how I know you really.
That's fine,
the technology that you roll out, I mean, there's other companies that do similar stuff. Just run through how that benefits, please, because what I really want people to understand is there is a north-south divide in rural communities, and with age and people in general who may not want to use it. But if you can be pulled through, there's some real wins, aren't there? And when we look at your product particularly, it's around supporting social care and people living in the community. But it has so much more. Run through what it is.
So it's a technology that supports the person to live independently in their own homes, and it kind of picks up all those worrisome points that you might have of somebody who's vulnerable. So are they going to fall over? Are they going to have health deterioration? Are they going to be able to keep communicating with loved ones? And so it will use discrete monitors around the home to pick up any kind of risk factors. So that might be, as I say, falls. It might be they don't get out of bed in the morning. It might be that there's raised temperatures in the property. And then it sends that information, and only when it's needed to a responder, and anyone could be allocated as that. So for people living in communities that are very rural, for example, I know when I was delivering care, we had people that we couldn't get to when the roads were shut, when it was icy, when it was snowy. And in those situations, you really want to be able to make sure the person's okay still. And in some situations, they won't be able to pick up a phone, they won't be able to speak to you. So this gives you an opportunity
it's
to
a real
check.
safety net for a family, isn't it? And for
Absolutely.
people like yourself who run units. I mean, to have that sort of power in your hand where you can look at data
Yeah.
that's live,
Yes.
and it's very non-intrusive, as you say, isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely.
how would that change how you work to be able to
Well,
see that?
I think it would change the dynamics of the house, and you know, we don't have the independent units, but if we did, definitely, you know, from what we've worked with before, it might give somebody a bit more independence.
Absolutely.
And somebody not having to monitor them or check in and do those check-ins. And for the multi-homes, you know, there's lots of one-to-one support, so they're not always in the property.
No.
So, yeah, I think it would really
But I
help.
also think it could really help, you know, lower down anxiety levels and frustrations, wouldn't it? You know, if you've got somebody young, old, indifferent, who's very tired in the mornings, and you're going in and saying, get up, and they're really getting frustrated at that. If you can see the data, actually, they're a night hawk and they've been running around the house all night, and then you understand that,
Absolutely.
you might then go, do you know what, I know you've been awake half the night, I'll come back at 11.
Yeah.
And that stops all that frustration. And also, I think, I don't want to bring in the local authorities and so on, but I'm going to, because I think it's really apt. I think we live in a world now where money's tight.
Yes.
Budgets are overspent. From a small investment to a product such as yours, because there's several, to be able to tailor make a care package off the data is really valuable, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So you can go down the rules of, we're going to give you half an hour in the morning to get Joan up. Joan doesn't want to get up at 7 o'clock because it's just the same scenario. They've been up all night. Absolutely. We don't know that.
No.
So then you also think, well, Joan must be ill. Joan must have a UTI. Joan must have this. And you start all these processes to try and alleviate that risk in your head. And actually, Joan's just a night owl and she's been sat up watching the news until 3 o'clock in the morning and just gone to bed. So to be able to tailor make that is really important, isn't it? And it may well be that you have some sort of roaming night service, which is cutting costs again, but actually pops in and sees Joan at 3 a.m. and goes, Joan, do you want a cup of tea before you go to sleep?
Absolutely. And I think as well, it's really about that person-centred approach, because we've been very much driven by institutional-based and service-based approaches. We have a space at 8 o'clock, so we'll pop a carer in at 8 o'clock for you. But actually, that's based on the fact that we think she needs assistance getting up, washed and dressed, because that's what she had in hospital, or that's what she's saying that she's struggling with. But often when you go in at 8 o'clock, she's already up, washed and dressed.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's not really the time that she needs it, or the care that she actually needs. So being able to understand that, and people change over time, their condition deteriorates or they get better, and all government policy at the moment is talking about prevention over
Hospital to home and all that.
Absolutely. So this sort of technology can really help move that forward and actually provide the outcomes we need for that agenda.
And I think, you know, as a family member, I mean, you know, Vic, if you had somebody at home and you were a family member looking after it, it'd give you so much reassurance. You could be sat at work getting prompts.
Yeah, I think, like you say, there's a lot out there. We have an Alexa for our families, so we can tap in, come in. I know when the kettle's gone on, but this will give you so much more data that it feels like you don't have to then be on top of the little bits that we're already getting.
Yeah, I think it's a really prudent conversation. It's really timely, isn't it? You know, these technologies have been around for a long time, and I think that it's now we're going to see them flourish over the next sort of few years, and hopefully the gap that we're talking about this particular podcast about will start to become smaller, and we can start selling the benefits to those people who are the laggers.
Absolutely. I think it's been really beneficial having things like Alexas, Apple Watches, smartwatches. I mean, most people nowadays have some sort of tech that's mainstream, purchased online or purchased, you know, through a Sainsbury's or Argos, that will give you that kind of basis of that information. So people are becoming more and more accepting of it and more aware of it. So I think when generations change and we start to have those people coming into care and needing support, I think the appetite to have this stuff will be a lot more widely accepted.
Absolutely, and I think just some reassurance about this sort of stuff. You know, these systems they've got some real good firewalls and things in it. The data's safe.
Yes.
Isn't it? You know, it's a closed loop system. It's internal. It's safe.
I think that's kind of the benefit. And if you were going to kind of talk about the difference between something like Alexa to something like Beanbag Care and other providers that do similar things, the system Alexas are designed for mass market. They're designed to collect information. My Alexa constantly listens. Absolutely. And you can restrict some data on it, but their benefit of having these things out there is it gets to understand what your wants are.
What do you want to buy?
Exactly, and it can advertise directly to you. It also has been designed for the mass market, so it has to meet a very wide-ranging group of people. Whereas if you have a system like Beanbag, like others like us, it's been designed specifically for that person. So the data is a lot more secure. Local authorities, NHS trusts have to go through their stringent processes to make sure that that is the case. And they actually have been designed for people living with disabilities, people who are frail, people who aren't used to using technology. So they're a lot more simple to use, they're a lot more accessible, and therefore sometimes a little bit more expensive because it's not mass market product. So you do have to pay a little more, and the innovation on those products may be a little bit longer winded because obviously the cohort of people using them isn't providing enough data. But actually, if you were going to choose one or the other, sometimes having a product that's been designed specifically for this market can be more beneficial than relying on something that's not been designed specifically to be relied upon.
Absolutely, but I also think, when we talk about cost, cost is always a really big thing, isn't it? It's one that makes us all judder, especially how things are in the world at the moment. However, that said, if you start to look at it from a real high oversight perspective, and you're saying my mum is often being ferried back and forth to the hospital. I've can't go to work 2 or 3 days a week, so I'm always late. All these things have a cost attached, even if you want to admit it or not.
Absolutely.
So if you can mitigate all those things by having some really clever tech in, you're probably going to find actually it equals out quite well.
Yeah. I think it's a really good point. I think often it's very tricky because it's cost avoidance, not cost saving necessarily. So you still have to invest up front to get the savings later on. And often it's about budgets, and I've only got X amount of people I can support because of my budget. How do I move from that model of supporting them now in crisis to supporting them before they get to that point? And it's about that mindset and that culture change to be able to enable that.
It really is. There's also something about being proactive, isn't there?
Absolutely.
If your parent or loved one, be it young, old or different, is struggling and they're maybe 2 or 3 years away from really struggling, put it in now.
Exactly.
I mean, the shelf life on these things is long, and the updates and the patches that you put in digitally to keep them up to date anyway. Yeah. So once you've got the hardware in, you can almost stop some of the things happening, can't you?
Absolutely.
So often we see people in the community who have been really active, and Vic, you would have seen it so many times, where they're really active and they have one fall because no one's monitoring them, they break their hip, and then they unfortunately pass away sometimes.
Absolutely.
So if you can get to them before that happens, I mean, how powerful would that be, Vic? I mean, if you could put something in, I can see that I just started, let's put it in now. And let's monitor and let's act on the data really ahead of time. That's a really powerful position to be in as a family, let alone a local authority.
Yeah, I think it would be.
It really would help, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we've had a lot of the situations like that really across all different types of care, where it's knowing, that incident happens, but it's knowing what's led to it as well. Because especially with dom care, because we're not there all the time, it's slightly easier in supported living services, but still things can go onto the radar, and then it's to a point where they've then had the fall or something's happened.
I think it's a really interesting point as well that I've worked in charities where we've tracked when people ask for help, and generally they're in crisis before they get to the point of asking for help, because people don't think it will happen to them, or they're not expecting it. And I think actually technology gives us a really good opportunity to do this. It's a bit like adapting your home. At the moment I'm renovating my property, I'm not thinking about wet rooms and ramps and things because I'm young and I still have everything accessible, but that could change tomorrow. So while I'm adapting my home, why wouldn't I consider the future? But actually technology blends into the background. It's quite cost effective. and it brings you an opportunity to communicate with loved ones if you don't see them regularly. So there are a lot of hidden benefits with it as well that aren't just because you struggle walking or struggle mobilising, that will enhance your life and enable you to participate in hobbies or speak to a cousin in America.
Imagine being on a call to your loved one in America and actually cooking a meal together.
Yeah.
We're going to get the same food in, we're going to have the same delivery, and we're going to go through and we're going to boil some rice together, we're going to have this conversation, we'll do it, and then we can sit across the table with each other and have our dinner together, even though we're in different countries. And that's all possible, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Before we sort of turn off this one, I think I just wanted you to really be quite clear about what it means to be unintrusive. Because I think it means a lot of things to different people, doesn't it? So
absolutely.
There's lots of similar products, and they're all ranging between having a smartwatch to a necklace to being completely unintrusive. So from your point of view, what does that mean?
I think there's a number of factors it covers. So as you say, there's a range of products, and it's A, about what information it collects, and then B, what information it shares, and how also it collects that information. So products on the market now, and my mother-in-law, prime example, when she had a stroke around about 10 years ago now, she lives 4 hours away from me. Our first response was to put a camera in, but we felt so uncomfortable dropping in on a camera to see what she's doing at any time. I mean, I don't know. She could walk around naked all day for all I know. It's very intrusive. So actually, the system that we use doesn't use cameras. I can't identify what the person's physically doing. They could be doing star jumps naked for all I know. I just know that they have a presence in the room. Yeah. But also it's about they don't look like they are disabled or needing to wear something to call for help, because that provides vulnerability, that makes people feel more vulnerable.
And quite often they take it off. I mean, my mum's got one and it's sat on next to her on the side, and I tell her all the time, if you fall, mum, it's all right.
Absolutely. And I think it's also about the data. So, your Apple Watch, your Fitbits and everything like that will give you a lot of data about yourself, and that's going to you, and that's fine. But a lot of these devices will provide a lot of information to people about whether they go to the toilet, whether they have a shower, but is that information really needed? And why am I passing that information to family and carers? So we only pass information when there's a problem. And therefore, that data that's collected isn't shared with anybody until there's a risk and there's a need. So we try and ensure that person's privacy is kept as much as possible.
But the nice thing about that, though, if you're working with an agency such as Unicare or other care agencies, you can bring that into a care planning scenario, can't you? Saying it's really important that we monitor your fluids or whatever that may be, and let's have some info on that, please. You can bring that data in and really use that for the benefit of that person. So rather than just being dusty data that's sat on the shelf somewhere and useless, you can really tailor it to that person's welfare. And that's a whole different ballgame, isn't it? Where you can be from being at home on your own, lonely, unsafe, to actually having a really good remote team around you who knows when you need the help before you even do sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you've hit on a really key point there, that often people will not ask for help until it's absolutely desperate. But if they were identified as, if I said to you today, your heart rate for the last 3 days has been really increased, you would say, I didn't think about that, and I have been feeling a bit under the weather now you said that, and maybe I'll get some help. Otherwise, you might sit and wait for 2 or 3 weeks until you either have a heart attack or you have some real situation that's a lot more desperate. So
there's some really good preventative things going on, isn't there? Anything else? Any thoughts? Any final thoughts from you, Kay? You're the guest. You can finish on your final thoughts. If you've got something you want to really get across, now's the time.
So I think it's just about kind of bringing it back to the topic we started on, that digital inclusion piece. I think it's really about making sure that everybody is aware that not everybody wants to be digitally included.
That's a big one.
There are going to be people.
Yeah, there's not wanting to as well, isn't there?
Absolutely. I think we have to consider what those people, the reasoning for why they don't want to. Is it because they actually don't want to, or is it because they have a fear? Is it a cost implication? And as you
or lack of understanding.
And I think that those people people who are able to help and support. I mean, even down to anybody listening to this today could then spend half an hour with a grandparent, a father, a son, whoever, and just talk to them through what technology can achieve for them and how they could achieve that in their lives. And if everybody did that, then we'd cover off quite a wide base.
And let's urge you all, if you're in a village and you haven't got a little share old tech, let's share old tech.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Claire. And we're going to grab your colleagues now and do some more podcasts.
No
so
worries.
thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye.